Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a reading for Cancer rising, or if you have Cancer placements in your chart and are needing a neutral energy to work with or balance within yourself. So Cancer, it's a really interesting one today, just because sometimes during Mercury retrograde, my readings will do this thing where like the cards come out in reverse. So so I have to read it from right to left instead of left to right, which is really interesting. Because I don't know, I feel like there's this energy of like maybe you're feeling like you're going backwards in some way. Or like you're something that you wanted to be going forward is not going forward. There's almost like a backwards energy, or like it's like going in reverse in not the direction that you're wanting to go in, basically. Which is kind of like with these cards here, we have the Adventure South, but this card is kind of bringing this energy of the South Node, right? Of like something perhaps that you're doing again, or some sort of cycle that you're doing over, perhaps. Maybe because there's something that you have to like go through again, perhaps, or like having to like find something or discover something. And then you have the Endurance Rock, which I feel like it's been something that you've been working on for a while. And then with the Purity Ice card, I always see this as sort of like there's like some sort of stuckness, but there's some energy here that's trying to release you from whatever that is kind of how that's feeling. And then you also have these two cards, the Transcending Pegasus and the Eagle Spirit Freedom, because I feel like this is where you are now, in this sort of transcending Pegasus energy, which is really interesting. Now that I was now that sort of falling behind energy was kind of coming in, because it's kind of like, normally I see this as being sort of like rising up, right? Like, so it could be that you may be experiencing that, but with here, the Pegasus on the ground, like the freedom, it kind of feels like there's something like that's, maybe you're feeling like there's something that was moving on without you, or that like there was some sort of forward momentum that you were clearly going towards, but now it feels like that's stopped, or it's caused perhaps like a backward slide in some way. Really interesting. Okay, and then these three cards, which are very difficult. The Ten of Swords, which I feel like is, I'm not going to over-explain that one, right? Like some sort of difficult ending is kind of what's coming through. And then the Mother of Wands, which is the Queen of Wands in this deck. So this one specifically in this deck talks about somebody who's incredibly strong, right? Has a lot of fire and the ability to create, and is a really good like ally and friend and all of that. But this one also has perhaps some trauma that is needing to be healed. And trauma is such an intense word. It doesn't have to be that. It could be any sort of like painful experience perhaps that's wanting to be cleared, especially with Mercury retrograde. All of that energy comes back around in order for it to be cleared. And I feel like you are, with the Daughter of Swords here, this is the Page of Swords, which has been coming up a lot recently. Perhaps a silent energy, or like there's someone here perhaps, because this feels kind of like somebody else, so I'm not quite sure. Might not be. It could be something like you, on some level, some aspect of you knows the truth of whatever that is, or it could be somebody else who has the truth, but perhaps isn't saying anything yet, or like they're waiting for whatever reason, or it's like it's not time yet, is kind of what's coming through here. So anyways, Cancer, let's get started with your reading. So again, I'm starting with the cards that came out last, because I feel like the cards that came out first are the one, like that's the end goal. That's what you're trying to move towards, is kind of how it's feeling. But there's kind of like a moving in reverse is kind of the energy that we're starting with. So we're starting off here with these three cards that came out together. So we have the Moon card, which to me today is talking about like there's been so much moon energy, right? This full moon in Scorpio has been really intense. But the moon energy is coming through with like not being able to see very clearly is kind of how it's feeling. Or there's a lot of illusions perhaps, or fear, even something that's just like things are not clear. And because of that, because you can't see clearly, there's all this energy of like fear or not sure what to do next perhaps, or like all of that. Especially with these two cards, the Three of Wands and the Two of Swords, because this Three of Wands to me talks about like your vision or your goal, or like what it is that you're trying to create perhaps, like planning and all of that. But because of this energy, the moon coming out first, it's kind of saying like your plans have been perhaps delayed, or just like there's this energy of like having to sit tight, because whenever the moon's out, or like the moon card comes out for me, it's kind of talking about this energy of like resting and waiting and observing, because right now is not perhaps the right time to be moving forward, is kind of how it's kind of coming through. And with this Two of Swords here, again, this is that's coming in with the eclipse energy. I know that's sort of representing a solar eclipse, but what this is talking about to me is that there's an energy of like the moon is not necessarily blocking out the sun, but it's kind of just feeling like the moon energy. So it could be emotional energy. It could be your feminine energies in general. So like your feminine zodiac sign reading might be particularly relevant to you, whatever that is for you. So it's kind of like saying that the moon energy, or your emotional energy, or however you interpret moon energy for yourself, is taking precedence over the sun, which is talking about forward movement. So I feel like you're being asked to focus on like your feminine emotional energy at the moment, especially with the Two of Swords, because that talks to me about like, first of all, like non-movement, right? There's a stalemate, or there's like two competing truths is how it's coming through, right? Like it's kind of like two beliefs or truths or ideas that are directly in opposition to one another. And so you're having to sort of wait in order to clear out whatever this thing is. So it could be confusion, it could be doubt. It's just like there's a goal or something that you're trying to create or move towards, but right now there are two contradicting energies that are almost like fighting against one another. It's causing resistance, is kind of how it's coming through. So the first two cards to come out here to explain that, right? We have the movement speed, right? But again, the way that it's looking on my table is that this movement speed is actually going in the wrong direction, right? So it's like coming through with this energy of like you were trying to get somewhere, or you're trying to go towards something, but your movement was actually stopped, and you're now going in the opposite direction, which is really interesting to me. I have no idea in what aspect of your life this is talking about, but you will know. And so that's the first card, and the card to accompany that is the healing spirit, the bear spirit healing, because I feel like there is some sort of healing that you're needing to do still. That's part of the moon energy, and I know that's so frustrating because like sometimes we want to like move towards something because we think that will be an energy that's healing to us, but sometimes it's kind of like you don't want to, like, let's say you have like a broken arm or something, right? Whatever experience you're trying to go towards won't be as enjoyable if you have a broken arm, or if you have like some sort of injury, right? You want to be in full health when you get to whatever that thing is. So it's kind of like, so perhaps there's something here that it's just this, right? It's like you're having to prioritize your healing first before you step into whatever that other thing is, right? That's sort of what it's feeling like to me. Whatever that healing is for you, I feel like you will know what that is, right? This Ten of Swords is not a subtle energy. This is very, very obvious, very direct, very like, you know what this is. You know what it is that is needing to be healed. And I feel like the next cards that are coming out, which is so interesting. you have here the Raven Spirit Truth and the Chaos Storm Spirit. Because I feel like, so this Storm Spirit, which is really interesting, because lightning to me represents an energy that is very fast, but also breaks down elements in like the atmosphere in order to provide growth for the plants, for example. So it's a breakdown of energy in order for that energy to be used in a more enriching, perhaps, way. So I feel like that's what's coming in. There is some sort of truth energy that's coming in to clear up whatever this Two of Swords is, right? This is kind of like the contradiction or the two opposing thoughts or something like that are directly against one another, and it feels like an internal conflict of some sort, or an internal contradiction maybe, and it may feel like chaos, or just like again, it's feeling like a lot of overwhelm, or just like, it's like, what's really interesting is that this card, the Cleansing Storms card, came out, but it actually flipped in reverse. And so it was looking like this. So you have 2 storm cards in your reading today, which is really tough. That's not an easy energy. 2 storm cards. One is in reverse. So I feel like it's not about cleansing, because I feel that's what I feel like this is talking about. Because I feel like whatever this past 10 of Swords energy is, it's finished. It has been sort of dealt with, I want to say. It perhaps has been cleansed already, but because it's coming in with like this sort of Daughter of Swords, like I feel like this is already gone, or it's not in your life. It's already something that you've dealt with or healed already, perhaps, or like are in the process of healing, because this is your first card, right? It's kind of like this is sort of the energy that you have been in, is kind of how it's feeling. You have been in this energy. You were trying to move forward from it. And it could even be just this retrograde that's like telling you here with the Daughter of Swords, there's one thing that you forgot, or there's one aspect that is still sort of causing this, whatever this 2 swords is, right? It's like you cleared all 10 swords except for these 2, right? There's one little, perhaps like splinter, or just like something that is needing to be cleared, is kind of how that's coming through, which I feel like you absolutely will be doing, right? Like I feel like that's what this is talking about. It's not necessarily a cleansing. I feel like you've done sort of the major work about that. It's kind of just like getting some sort of like really intense clarity, because the 2 of Swords, it's like both of these 2 thoughts are equally matched, is kind of how it's feeling. I'm trying to think of an example of what this could be. It's a really tough energy. It's just feeling like a stalemate, and I actually don't want to put examples on it, but I don't know, maybe we'll see. But anyways, what's coming out next though, just to move on to like once that sort of clarity and truth comes in, you have this really gorgeous energy here, the Fire Ignition, which is talking about like, I feel like this is a more authentic sort of movement, is kind of how it's looking, because whatever it is that you're going towards, whatever happened, is not saying that this was the wrong direction for you, right? It's not saying that whatever you were trying to move towards was wrong, or that you didn't do something correctly or whatever. It's just saying that perhaps there was something, it's kind of like getting the right fuel, right? It's like perhaps this was more of like it wasn't, not that it wasn't properly motivated, but it wasn't perhaps sustainable in some way. There was something unsustainable about this energy, and then this one's like actually getting the proper fuel, or like getting a refuel in some way in order to move towards it. Because what you have next here, which is so beautiful, all of this, so first of all of this fiery energy, and then all the tarot cards to come out under here are very fiery cards. So you have Leo, the strength card, you have the Fool, which to me is a very Aries energy. And then you have the Ace of Wands and the Sun, which I love so much, right? Because this is sort of when you have the fire again. So it's kind of like you're perhaps during this retrograde season. So it might last. This might take a bit. I don't know when Mercury retrograde ends. Hopefully soon. But whenever this energy sort of plays out, it's like once you remove that one splinter, right? Because it's not something big. It's just like getting rid of one of these two swords, right? Because you need one sword, but the other one is directly opposing you. It's like all of this sort of fiery energy comes in order for you to start again, is kind of how it's feeling. And it feels like you are going in the right direction. Whatever this energy was that you were trying to move towards that perhaps got halted, I feel like that's still valid, right? It's still true. It's just kind of like perhaps going about it in a different way, because this movement speed card talks about it's a very air kind of energy, right? Like, so if we're just talking about the elements, like this is a very air energy, like moving very quickly compared to fire. And if you think about the elements, air and fire are completely opposite. So I feel like it's talking about whatever, like perhaps the way in which you were trying to go towards this goal was not the right approach, maybe, is kind of how it's feeling, right? It's like trying, again with this card here, perhaps you were trying to do something by air, whatever that means. It doesn't have to be related to that. It could just be there was one way that you were trying to approach a situation, but the way that you were supposed to approach it is by land or by fire or something like that. It's an opposite approach, is kind of how it's feeling. The goal is still the same, but the approach is different. And so whatever this energy was that almost like put a halt to what you were doing, it's like it was in order for you to get in the right position, maybe, or just like it's almost like they put, if we're talking about like something in the middle that you're trying to move towards, you were trying to approach it from this way, but then like you were placed on this side because you're actually supposed to approach it from that way, if that makes sense. It's kind of like you're having to shift from the direction in which you're approaching this goal or whatever it is. I feel like that's what that's talking about. It's an opposite approach. Okay, anyways, this energy is so beautiful. It's so lovely. I feel like whatever it is that you're going towards is in alignment. It's all of this sun energy because, again, we started off with the moon, right? But now it's moving into the sun. And then what we have next here, you have here the Starry Night Acceptance and the Clarity Mountain. Because I feel like after that sort of fiery energy passes through, it's going to feel incredibly peaceful is what this is feeling like. Like all of this fire moves through and then it's just like clarity and acceptance, right? Accepting sort of the path that spirit perhaps wanted you to go towards, or accepting sort of like these detours kind of energy. That's kind of what it feels like. There was some sort of detour that you were having to go through, but then that detour brings you so much clarity. It's like because it could be something like you were going this way, right? You were trying to go towards something, but I don't know, perhaps it just felt like it was like an uphill battle, or just like something wasn't working out or whatever it is. But then when you're put in the right position, or if you're put, something is flipped upside down. That's been such a huge theme recently. Something's flipped upside down or flipped in the opposite orientation or whatever it is, and it suddenly makes a lot of sense, is kind of how it's coming through. But then what I love here so much is you have here the Chariot coming out next, which is absolutely the Cancer card, right? And it's talking about movement, being able to move again. What I really love about this Cancer card is, for me, Cancer energy, obviously Cancer is a water sign, right? It's a watery energy, but for some reason for me, Cancer always comes through as being very grounded. It's kind of like the the perfect mix between water and earth energy, which is what's being represented here. So I feel like there's something about, again, with this movement speed, perhaps you were trying to move towards something really quickly. It might be, right? Because air is a very quick moving energy. Maybe you were trying to move towards something very quickly, and then that's what caused sort of the hold up. It's not supposed to move that fast, is kind of how that's coming through. The Chariot still moves fast, right? Still a fast moving energy, but is much more grounded in terms of like, if you think about like an airplane, right? That moves very fast versus a car, for example, which is like a ground travel, right? It's kind of like air travel versus ground travel. So I feel like what you're being asked to do is like you're perhaps taking a slower route, which I feel like is whatever that means. It just feels like it's a slower route, right? That's not a bad thing. I feel like that because it's almost like you'll be able to see more of the landscape, or you're going to experience something else in this sort of the slower moving kind of energy that you would have missed if you were like traveling by air, for example, right? Which is really interesting. I know that's like perhaps not like the easiest message perhaps to get. It's like perhaps there was a moving too fast. I feel like this energy though is very well matched to you, is kind of how it's feeling. You're still moving towards your goal, just at a pace that is much more natural to you, is kind of how it's feeling. And then what I love here, these three cards coming out next. The Phoenix Transmutation, which is talking about, like, this was the very first card that came out, but I feel like this is talking about the end goals, that you're trying to transmute whatever this energy was into something that allows you to take flight. Because it's talking about, again, the fire and the air. Because I feel like what was happening before is that you were trying to move towards something very quickly, but perhaps didn't have enough fuel in order to get there, right? It's like if you're going to take a long trip by airplane, you better make sure you have enough fuel in the tank, is what this is talking about. So it could be something like you were trying to fly across the country, but there wasn't enough fuel in the tank, so Spirit told you to stop or wait, or like this is not the right way to do this or something, or not the right way to go about it. And so now it's like you're in a car, perhaps moving slower, but there are a lot of gas stations along the way so that you can refuel as you're moving along, if that makes sense. So the way that you are being asked to go in is slower, but there are more opportunities for refueling until eventually you get enough fuel, right, with this Phoenix Transmutation to move as fast as you want to, right? It's like this is like enough fuel to fly across the country, that kind of thing. And then here with the sun, so you have the sunlight card twice, right? You have the sun twice. What I love about this sun card is that it's kind of like a gathering, a rare occurrence, or like a perfect alignment of events is kind of how I see this, right? It's like perhaps the goal that you were being asked, like this I'm seeing as like the goal of what you're trying to move towards. And it's like you were trying to get there as fast as possible because you're excited, right? But this energy is trying to reassure you that if you're being asked to move at a slower pace, this thing is still going to be there. You're going to make it in time. It's going to be a perfect alignment of events, right? It's like you're not going to miss this. The path or the pace perhaps that you're being asked to go in, which feels slower, is actually like the perfect timing, is kind of how it's feeling. It's a perfect timing kind of energy. So it's like you don't have to worry about getting there really quickly or as soon as possible or as fast as you can. It's not going to move in that direction anyways, because I feel like you've been stopped for a reason. It's like if you continue at this pace, if you continue at whatever this pace is, it's like you're going to run out of fuel midway, or like sooner than you think perhaps. And it's like this way is not only like more pleasant. It's like you'll have enough to refuel and all of that. It's much more of like a enjoying the journey to the destination rather than getting to the destination as fast as possible. I hope that makes sense. So, and then this card coming out last, which is kind of feeling like a stairway to heaven kind of energy, right? It's like the whole part of the whole reason why the climb so it's because it's the Nine of Wands, it does talk about sort of resilience and having to keep going, right? But it's also talking to me about the fact that this goal becomes much more worth it, much more worthwhile because of the journey that it took to get there, right? Anyways, so I'm going to end it there, Cancer. I hope that resonated with you. If you're interested in the extended, you can find the link in the description box below. You'll also find my website if you're interested in a personal reading. If this message resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.